John, I need some. Get me some. Look, tell me what they are. Please, tell me. Please.
Can't help, sorry.
Hello, and welcome to the third episode of the Sonic Bytes podcast, the freewheeling conversation and interview series for the eclectic music lover. This week, we're starting with something different by challenging each other to a game of Guess the Release Year for some of our favourite records of all time. After that, we discuss some of our favourite methods of discovering new music, and hopefully share some new perspectives with you on that topic. Also, I can't believe I'm saying this, but shout out to that new Taylor Swift record because oh my goodness, it's so good. Let us know if you're enjoying the podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
And that was better that time. It worked better.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's probably because I just clapped a bit earlier, and then.
Oh, okay. You're anticipating the anticipating the beat.
Internet's working.
Apparently, humans are the only people who can do that. The only type of animal who can anticipate beats in music.
Oh, really? No way.
Yeah, so like in terms of, I can't remember where I was looking at it, but humans they're sort of uniquely designed to work with music. So things like cockatiels and parrots and birds, they can mimic pitch and they can do it perfectly. I think it's the lyrebird that I saw in David Attenborough. They can mimic the noises of like cameras and chainsaws and other birds. But if you have something, say like a melody, they can mimic it exactly, but they can't mimic it in a different pitch. So if you had like ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, to use the jazz lick, but then if you brought it up for ba ba da ba da ba da, they recognise that as.
We've just lost 5 listeners there.
I've said it twice. That's it. I've done it. But if it was a higher pitch, the bird wouldn't recognise it, and so they can't recognise different pitches. And then chimpanzees can, I think they can recognise pitches, and that a melody is the same in different pitches, but they can't anticipate a beat. So if you start clapping a rhythm, they can react to it, but they can't anticipate it. So if you go like 1, 2, 3, the monkey will be like 1, 2, 3.
Oh, wow.
But they can't anticipate. So only humans sort of have the mental capacity to be able to anticipate music and recognize melody and sort of rhythm and things. So we're uniquely designed to have music.
Yeah, maybe they're just operating at a latency. So maybe actually they could jam over Zoom with the, and they've actually got it all figured out for the.
What was that thing where they say like if you put like enough monkeys with enough typewriters, they'll write like the whole thing of Shakespeare, and if you put enough monkeys on Zoom, they'll
they'll record the next hit album. You know?
Yeah, there's some musical there's some musical potential there as well that we can definitely be using.
Yeah. Speaking of hit albums, we've segue. There we go.
Perfect segue.
Where, we've taken thanks to everyone who's listened to the first 2 episodes of the podcast so far. And we've received a lot of great feedback from everyone that's listened so far. And one thing we thought we could do is maybe start incorporating some games and some sort of guessing games into our podcast. So we thought we'd go straight in and try and do one straight away. So we've come up with the game. It's called the album guessing game. I've just made that up on the spot.
Yeah.
Because we haven't actually named it something else.
We're working on a theme tune at the moment. We'll have that. We'll have that in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, it's in production. TBD.
So basically, the way it works is that we'll keep it short to begin with. We'll have 3 albums for the other person to guess. So I've got 3 albums here for Johnny to guess the year of release. One of the albums is an album that I think he definitely should know the release of. The other one is one that he might know the release of, but might catch him off guard a little bit. An artist that he likes, but might not know the year of release. And the other one is a complete stab in the dark that if he gets it right, then he's even more of a musical genius than I already think he is. So I have. I mean,
we do have quite similar music tastes. I feel similar,
yes.
not in a completely similar way, but I feel like our paths have crossed over. Hence why we know each other.
And hence why I'm a little bit apprehensive because if we've picked the same albums, it's going to be really awkward for the first game.
Oh yeah, of course. We haven't even thought about it.
We haven't told the other person what they're going to be because obviously that defeats the point of the game. So I have.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure you have not picked the albums that I picked, but hey.
I'm pretty confident as well, so we should be all right. So I have here an English pound coin. Sorry for any listeners who do not use money as a currency.
English,
but will be.
Don't they use pounds? They use pounds in Scotland as well.
Yeah, use pounds in Scotland as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Don't make me. The notes are different, but the
I'm trying to catch you out.
same.
It's the mind games.
Screw my mind,
it's competitive.
It started already. Right. Okay. So I'll toss the coin, and I'll let you call heads or tails.
Wait, am I guessing first here?
Guess heads or tails, and then you can.
Heads.
And then you can choose who. Okay. It is. For the camera there, it is tails. So I get to choose. So I'm going to say that you get to go first, and you can.
As in, do I ask first or do I?
As in, you ask first. Yeah, hit me with the albums.
Cool. All right, round one. Ding 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 ding. All right, so this is an album that you should know the release year for.
Okay.
Specifically. All right.
Oh my God.
So the first album is Graceland by Paul Simon.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that is 1986.
And the answer is 1986. Hey.
Yes. Oh, thank God. We need some sound effects to like push cheers and drum rolls and things.
Yeah. What's your favorite
in
track
production
of Graceland?
for next episode? Off Graceland, it's got to be. Oh man, there's so many good tracks on that album. I think it's I Know What I Know.
Cool.
Which I think is track 4 on the album. It has some fantastic guitar playing by Ray Fury, and some really, really cool backing vocals as well, which you don't often... the whole album is sort of based on South African music, and so there's sort of South African chanting in the background, which sounds absolutely amazing as well. So if you guys haven't heard Graceland by Paul Simon, released in 1986, definitely go and listen to it out and check it out. It's an amazing album.
All right.
Okay,
cool.
one for one.
All right, round 1, part 2, I guess. As in I'm gonna ask you all the questions at once.
Yes, yeah. Go for it.
Okay, cool. All right,
okay.
All in one go. Okay, round 2, I guess.
Okay, one for one.
I'm trying to catch you out. The second album is, drum roll, Couldn't Stand the Weather by Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh man, that's so irritating. I'm the biggest Stevie Ray Vaughan fan in the world, but like I discovered Stevie Ray Vaughan through a greatest hits album, and so I don't actually know exactly when it came out. I know he was big in the 80s, so I'm going to go for 1982.
And the answer is, it's 1984. I thought I'd catch you out there because I feel like Stevie Ray Vaughan's he's had some amazing songs over the years, but I think maybe the studio albums, even as a Stevie Ray Vaughan disciple, you might not know exactly when that particular album Couldn't Stand the Weather, or what the other albums, Texas Flood, is that the other one?
Yeah, Texas Flood was the first one.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely right, and I guess like our generation as well don't necessarily buy sort of CDs in the same way either. I did actually buy a Steve Ray Vaughan Greatest Hits CD, but obviously not when I bought it in 2013, I think.
Yeah, same as
so
me,
a long time after it came out.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
All right.
2 for 1.
Moving swiftly on, and the last question is sort of the off the wall. It's not Off the Wall by Michael Jackson, but an off the wall album release that I don't think you would know, but I'm going to let you guess. And it is, drumroll, Taylor Swift's eponymous album, Taylor Swift.
Can you tell me which of her albums that was in terms of number? And that might give me a bit more of a chance to guess.
The first, it was her first album.
Her first one, right? Okay. Because oh god, she's been around for a while. I want to say like, wait a minute, she was. I'm gonna drop another John Mayer bomb here, because when they dated, she was 19 and he was 31, and that was in 2009. So if she brought it out when she was like 17, I want to say like 2007.
And the answer is 2006. Oh, you were so close.
Man, I was so close.
Oh, I think your reasosoning was right there, but
yeah. She might have been like a certain age, and she could have. I don't know if she was 17 when she brought it out. I assume she was around about that age. But like, you might have had the thing with school years when like some kids they have a birthday later in the year. So like when it actually gets to 2006 or 2007, they won't be the age that they would be for most of the year, kind of thing.
Fair.
That's my defense anyway. All right, okay.
All right,
so
let's flip the script. Yeah.
1 out of 3. Let's flip the script then. Okay.
Yeah.
So
hopefully we'll actually get to our topic of conversation today.
Hey, who knows? We may get there.
This
I'm
could
having
just be
so
the
much
whole
fun
episode.
with this though. This could be the whole thing, couldn't it? Okay, so my first album for you then, the one that you definitely should know, is Brown Sugar by D'Angelo.
That's obviously 1995, mate.
Wow, didn't even hesitate. And the answer is yes, July the 3rd, 1995.
Yes.
Very, very good. What is your favourite track off Brown Sugar by D'Angelo?
Ooh, that's hard. I think one of the first. I mean, Brown Sugar is definitely one of the best tracks. I think maybe one that is slightly less popular is me and those dreaming eyes of yours. Oh, what's the exact title of it? It's track 4. It's After the Jones with My Bones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got a nice little jazz guitar solo in the middle. It's a bit more guitar led, and the album's amazing. He played most of the tracks on the.
You got me into that album. I remember listening to that in the first 6 months of meeting you and being completely blown away. So definitely listen to
classic.
Yeah, definitely listen to Brown Sugar by D'Angelo if you get the chance as well. All right,
Cool.
1 for 1. At least we know the we know the albums that we should know.
Nice.
Which is encouraging. Okay, so the second one that might catch you out is 1999 by Prince.
Ooh.
I thought the date might throw you a little bit because it was 1999, but it wasn't released in 1999, or was it?
I think this was in the. I'm gonna say. I need to get better with my Prince periods, but I'm gonna try and say 1980.
It was, drum roll please.
I'm completely off on her.
1982.
I was in the I don't know.
In the right
what's the
decade.
variance of
I think 2 years is is fair.
yeah.
Like,
I think you were also 2 years off Couldn't Stand the Weather as well.
I was
that's
2 years
quite
off Stevie
interesting.
Ray Vaughan. Okay,
Yeah.
so you got to be 1 year off this next one.
All right.
For us to
let's-
tie.
Let's do that.
Otherwise, I beat you for this week, and you have to. We'll work out a forfeit or something as well, which could be demeaning potentially. Okay, so the third one that might throw you is Wednesday Morning 3 a.m. by Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, I have absolutely no clue. I'm going to say 1972.
It was 1964.
Oh, I was
It was
8 years
their-
old. Oh, I was
it
in the
was
wrong
the-
decade.
It was the first one they brought out before
right.
that was the one where they brought out the Sound of Silence acoustic version, and then that was what led the band because they didn't have that much commercial success, so they broke up, and then the studio discovered Sound of Silence, put the drums and bass on it, and they released it again back in 1968 as well.
And then
The rest is history.
And the rest is history. So I win for this week, which means I will work out a forfeit, or maybe even better, our viewers can comment Johnny's forfeit in the
oh wow,
in the comments
that's a
section,
slippery slope, mate.
which we'll see.
all of our 5 viewers, you know.
Yeah, we'll pick the most interesting one, and Johnny will have to do the forfeit. But yeah, so that's our. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I was gonna try and drag it towards
Try and wriggle out.
kind of something. I think something that's been on my mind this week, in terms of music and discovering music. Obviously, you might hear an album that you're listening to on a podcast that you've never heard before, or someone's been talking about in the past, such as us here, and you go and check that out or something like that. And I've been discovering a lot of new music recently, especially in lockdown, and also just in general with the proliferation of the internet. Not that I wasn't discovering music before that, but just in different ways. And I think it's something I feel like a lot of people ask the question, where do I find new music? Like, give me some music recommendations. And obviously, that's a very nice. I think it's great when people come in with recommendations and things like that. And finding new music is one of the joys of, for me at least, of listening to music. It's just that, when you put a new record on that you've never heard before, and it just absolutely blows your mind, and you're just in the right place at the right time. And yeah, I mean, what are your favorite ways to discover music? I think that's the main question.
Yeah, that is a really good question actually. I think because it's definitely
I'm interested in in what you do as well now, because I don't think we've talked about this in a while.
No, that's very true actually. The
Just
last
as friends.
Yeah, I think the discovery of music has changed a lot sort of recently, obviously with the proliferation of streaming platforms and things like that. And so I find personally now that even though music is easier to discover than it's ever been, because there are so many different ways to find it. You obviously have YouTube, you have Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. There's so many different places to discover music. It almost overloads me a little bit. And so like still the best way that I find to discover stuff I personally do is sort of just stumbling upon it. And that can be sort of any way, be it on YouTube, be it on Spotify, be it hearing stuff on the radio. Because me personally, I have two brains that I listen to music with, which is what I've been thinking about. I have my fan brain, we can sort of like sit back and like chill out and sort of appreciate the music for the sake of the music. And I have my artist sort of musician brain, which is a lot more analytical and a lot more kind of obsessive, and it's very committed to certain types of music. And so if I'm going to listen to music with my artist brain, it wants to break it down, it wants to understand it, it wants to be able to replicate it, it wants to know everything about it. And so sometimes hearing a certain type of music when I'm in that artist brain mode is almost a little bit overloady, if that makes sense. Like if to take example, like to take something maybe on the extreme of it, like Jacob Collier's stuff, for example. Like I really love listening to it, but not with my musical brain, because it comes to me almost like an essay or something that I'd have to sort of read and break down and understand, and it's like my musical brain can't handle it. Whereas if I can just switch into my fan brain, I can just sit back and go, that's amazing, and that's enough for the fan brain. But the musical brain has to go like, no, everything has to be broken down, decoded, understood, in terms of theory or in terms of practically being able to play stuff. And so like there are two different ways to discover music, and sort of my fan brain loves to just take it wherever it is, but then like my musician brain sort of, it tends to look for things a bit more analytically for what the brain needs at that certain time, I guess, if that makes sense. Do you have something similar? Or
I mean, I totally get what you mean. I definitely think of things, well, not completely binary, because I like to dabble in both, but obviously you've got jazz, classical music, even indie music, that you kind of want to deconstruct as a musician. You want to cover it in the projects that you're in. I think we're both involved in music projects that are quite wide-ranging in scope, so we have that as well, even if we listen to like a pop song. But at the same time, I love like pop punk and emo and alternative rock as well, and I don't really play in that type of music as a musician, so I can even though I might try and decode those things on a musician level, I would love to listen to bands like I like to listen to bands like Neck Deep and Stand Atlantic, like these new bands, and Paramore. Just it's just a nice way to wind down, I think. But anyway, bringing it back to the question of discovering music, I think. So I think there's a lot of different ways to I guess satisfy those two parts, and discovering music as a fan and also as a musician. As a fan, I think one of my favorite ways to discover new music, and I encourage anyone to use this method to try and discover new music as well, is also what an artist that I am listening to is recommending. I think that's it's sort of there's a way of there's some sort of like legitimization almost that comes with that I know that an artist that I'm into is digging. I know I can figure out what sort of influences are going into their music. And I think one of my favorites is Theo Katzman. I think his Twitter, which is I think a bit less followed than Wolfpack and his Instagram, but he posts a lot of his friends' music that he's produced, or his I think just his sphere of friends and things that he's listening to. He loves to post albums and songs that he's really digging at this time, and that's resulted in me sort of finding out a lot of great music as well. I don't have any actually specific examples to mind. But I think he really recently talks about the new Christian Lee Hudson album, But yeah, there's just been so much music that has just come from him posting on Twitter about his favorite bands and artists. I mean, yeah, I think definitely online is the main way that people discover new music nowadays. You can sort of do it the old way, but I think online as well. I love using YouTube channels to discover music. Sort of YouTube channels, not just YouTube recommendations. I think obviously there's the way of going down the YouTube rabbit hole and finding new music, but also through music critics as well. People like, my favorite music critic is probably Anthony Fantano. It's not a surprise to people that know me. But yeah, he'll review music that across a range of genres, and I've just found so much music that way as well.
I think YouTube's a very interesting one actually, because maybe not in necessarily the typical way of sort of learning through YouTube recommendations, but a lot of channels now that are music based, in order to sort of have interesting videos and interesting content, they'll post lists of things. One of my favorite to watch, I know you're a fan of him as well, is Rick Beato. And he'll do something like the top 20 greatest rock intros of all time. And it's really great to watch, and it's really interesting. Obviously that's his own opinion, but then it's almost an interesting way of discovering, sort of new bands that way as well, and sort of a way to measure it against your own. If you're really into rock music, whether that list checks out with your own kind of thing. But like if you're not into rock music, someone recommending what they think the best of all time is, that's kind of a good sort of way into getting into a certain genre of music as well.
And I think Rick Beato, one of the things he also does is sort of resurrect music that you might have come across in the past, maybe once, and then you go back into that, and it's almost like you discover, maybe you listen to it like 10 years from now. So I think one of the artists that he was deconstructing was Van Halen, and and obviously I listened to Van Halen as a teenager when I first picked up guitar, as most guitarists do, I think, and I listened after he broke down. I don't remember exactly which song he broke down, but I just got listening to some of their older their first classic albums, and they're just so tight, and I could hear different things. I can hear the different harmonic choices, and even just appreciation of the recording techniques and things like that. So it's almost as if you're discovering music that you've discovered already for a second time.
Definitely. I think the Spotify one's interesting because like it's a strange one, because I think it depends on you almost get out of it as much as you put into it. And it depends, and this sort of links on to another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is why people listen to music as well. So like people have, I'm sure you've had this question a lot more than I have, because I know your musical tastes are a lot broader, and I've asked you obviously the same thing about sort of, I need some new music, give me some new inspiration, give me something to listen to. And a lot of the time it's almost, it's thinking, if someone asks you that, why what they want exactly out of it as well. Like, do they want new music are they musicians? Do they want new music to learn to play? Are they just listening for stuff for a certain vibe? Is it something they enjoy doing? Like, what do they listen to music for? Is it for educational purposes? Is it for escape? Is it for like if it's someone who likes going out like clubbing and things, is that the kind of music they want to listen to? So it's kind of like, it depends what role it sort of plays in their lives, I suppose.
I mean, there's many ways to tackle that question, I think, in terms of discovering music. I feel that I feel like a genuine way that some people do, the reason why they want to discover new music is to maybe support the artists, I think. So if an artist that you really admire or has made an album in the past that was really affected you emotionally, then you might want to give back, and you also, you're just genuinely curious, right? I think human beings are curious, and they want to know they want to hear new music, and the feeling of listening to new music, maybe that's something that people are chasing, It's like a drug, like don't do drugs, but it's that type of feeling, when I put on a new album by I don't know who, like Wolfpack or King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, the artist I'm really into right now, I'm like like as super fans of the band, you're looking at every single move that they're making on social media to try and figure out the details of the new album, what it's going to sound like, whether it's going to be unexpected or whether it's going to be completely up your street. There's a bit of an unknown factor. It's very exciting. I mean, sort of new releases sort of stand for themselves in that way, and it just brings you back to why you want to listen to music.
I think that's interesting because I certainly have that sort of that interest of what an artist is going to bring out next, but I know it's not necessarily the same for a lot of people. And that is, again, sort of to talk about sort of the fan brain and the artist brain. Again, sort of like the fan side of my brain really likes doing that, but there's like a third side to it, and there's something that my mum's mentioned a couple of times as well. To give a bit of context for it, I bought her Paul Simon's latest album. It came out in 2016. It was called Stranger to Stranger. And I've been a fan of Paul Simon since as long as I can remember, mostly because of my mum, in fact, because she got me into it. And when that came out, I bought it straight away. I was really excited and absolutely loved it. But I gave it to my mum, and she wasn't as much of a fan of it. And it was quite interesting because I think to her, Paul Simon is Paul Simon from the 1980s. And it's the same for a lot of, like, my dad's a big Pink Floyd fan, but if Pink Floyd brought out a new album now, I don't think he'd be that interested. And so I think there's an emotional side to music as well. And I think human beings, they have not an emotional limit, but there's a certain range of emotion. This works for me at least anyway. And like if there's a certain song that hits a certain feeling, there are times when I'll hear a song that's similar to it, and like it hits the same emotional note, but I already have the song that does that in my brain.
Sure.
And so like I don't necessarily need another one to sort of do the same kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, do you think it's a negative thing, or do you think that's something that's completely valid? I mean, obviously, you can't really force someone to like new music. If someone's making something, it's a product in the end. At the end of the day, as much as it is an art piece. If someone paints a painting that they're just not interested in, then you literally don't have to go and see it. It's the same with music, right?
I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing. I just think that it goes back to why you listen to music. Like, is music an emotional thing for you? Is it something that you use to amplify a certain emotion you're feeling, or there's that meme that you've posted me loads of times, sort of like, turning up, like repeating a sad song because the bit that's supposed to hurt you doesn't hurt you enough, and you want to hear it again to feel it even more. So I think a lot of times
at
music
the National,
so like in a way, I guess for a lot of people, music can be a way of taking you to a certain place, sort of emotionally. It certainly is for me for a lot of songs. And in terms of songwriting, it's something that I'm quite interested in doing as well. If I hear a certain type of song, like in part of my brain sort of goes, I want to be able to write a song like that, so that I can almost like capture the emotion that song gave me and have something that's mine to then sort of be able to feel it again, kind of thing. But obviously that's me as a songwriter and sort of the songwriting side of my brain, and that's why it listens to music. But sort of the fan side of my brain, if I'm in sort of fan mode, is more happy to sort of listen to anything, and sort of, and it gets more into, as you said earlier, kind of like the day-to-day sort of machinations of the artist and sort of the things that they do every day, and sort of like buying into the artist as a brand, and sort of like what they're doing, and sort of being interested in the artist itself as opposed to just the music. And so I think there's that kind of side of things as well to the music, to why we listen to music, and also like how we discover it. Being a fan of the artist helps you then be a fan of the music as well, because you understand why the songs have been written the way they have.
I get it. It just completely differs person to person in terms of how you like to approach music. I think for me, I want to listen to as much music as possible before I can't listen to music anymore. And the more I listen to, the more I can contextualize other albums that I've listened to as well, and maybe either draw influences, draw connections, and things like that. But at the same time, I don't think that maybe that's not for everyone. So maybe that's something that I need to learn as well, is that not everyone is going to be receptive to new ideas, and some people might be wanting to try and see the artists that they know and love, experiment with new things with the new music that they come up with, and discover new styles of music as well. That's an interesting point that you've raised.
Well, as you said, I think it's really interesting that you have that attitude towards music, because it's definitely something that I aspire to do, to be able to listen to as much music as possible. But I just think there are, for me at least, like there is a time and a place for certain music, and I have to be in a mood to discover new music in order to fully appreciate it, I think.
I mean, there's pros and cons. I feel like as a result of trying to consume as much music as possible, maybe you don't spend as much time with the existing stuff that you've already discovered. So maybe my knowledge of the albums that I really like, that we both like, maybe yours goes a bit deeper because you've spent more time with it. Which is something I always think of with people like Anthony Fantano, or just music reviewers in general. They have to listen to so much new music all the time. And the way they approach it is I think Fantano really does like do his homework and really look into the music that he's listening to and reviewing. But the way he discovers music is probably on a he probably has to differentiate between the stuff he's listening to in his free time, in his downtime, and like stuff for his job, which is reviewing music, and it's like new music coming in like constantly. And sometimes you might be disappointed with his review because you've spent triple the time that Anthony Fantano has spent with that music, and his opinion of it is different, And I guess that goes from like the person to person thing, like with your mom and you. Me and Anthony Fantano. That's the parallel.
It's a really interesting point. Sort of like people, and again, sort of people who listen to music professionally, and it can get very sort of philosophical very quickly, can't it? Sort of like in terms of like how we hear and perceive music and stuff. But it is interesting to think that like, the music that can mean so much to you individually, for whatever set of circumstances, because you heard it at a particular time in your life when it just affected you, and it just got, whatever situation you were in, it amplified it, made it better, made it worse, can have such a small effect on someone else as well. That's something that I always find, and I try to be really sensitive to when other people recommend me music, because if someone recommends me music, normally it's because it's because it means something to them as well, and there might be a whole story there that I don't necessarily know, but they're almost willing to share that side of the story with you, and they want you to kind of experience the same thing that they experienced when listening to the music for the first time. Sometimes it's not the case. There's also the other side of music recommendation, I think, where, I don't know if you find this, but there are certain bands and artists as a certain type of musician, be it a blues guitarist, be it a pop singer, be it a fan of neo soul. If you're a fan of a certain genre, you're kind of expected to know. Okay. And so by recommending it, it's not only a way of showing that the songs mean something to you, it can also be a way of showing someone else that you have what you think is good taste in music. Yeah.
So you're trying to go along the line as in like you're almost compelled to discover that type of music because of the expectations of a certain style of music. It's like if you want to call yourself a blues guitarist, then you gotta have listened to B.B. King and Stevie Ray Vaughan and whoever blues greats, or I guess it transfers to every other genre. I'm not going to go into every genre, but
like if you are a trumpet player, like kind of like any self-respecting trumpet player will have heard of Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, etc. And I wonder, I don't know if it's true, whether that bleeds into musical recommendation as well. If you want to, because when you're recommending music to someone, you're showing, you're not bearing your soul, but you're providing a window into your own experience as well. And so you want to sort of portray a view of yourself that shows, I've listened to really good music growing up all the time, and that's set me instead to then recommend it to you, because it almost gives you a kind of, not I know what I'm talking about more, but it positions you in a particular way if you can show that you've listened to a certain kind of music, I guess, if that makes sense.
I feel like, just to go on to maybe a final point, Maybe we can expand on this point, but I think maybe sometimes it is a bit daunting. So just going to just have to discover, almost feel a pressure to discover music in that in the way that you've described in terms of the genres. But also,
do you find
I feel
it
like
daunting?
maybe I mean I don't find it daunting. It's like I just don't want to. I think what's daunting to me is that I'm gonna maybe go deaf one day, in which case I can't discover new music. But I think maybe it's daunting in terms of the fact that there's so much music accessible now, and I think historically the way people discover music over time, at least in the commercial recorded music age, which is not that long. It's only maybe
when did Spotify come out? Was it 2000?
Yeah, but I mean, just in terms of recorded music, it's only been a couple of decades, that of mass consumer recorded music.
Right. Yes.
And being able to discover records. I mean, records.
Yeah, it's been about 70 years. 60, 70 years. Yeah.
So I think obviously nowadays you have Release Radar that just every Friday tells you all the new music via an algorithm. Whereas I guess in the past I'd be going to HMV to find a good 2 for £10 or 3 for £10 deal at HMV, and that's how I discovered music back then. I'd be just picking up a random CD like Kings of Leon. I remember we listened to that in the car on that road trip the other day, and just seeing what the hell it sounded like. I hadn't even opened it, I think, and we listened to it and we were like, and had our opinions about it. But that's how people, I guess, used to, or like they pick up an old vinyl record or from a record store. They have no idea what it is, but the guy at the counter recommended it, and you were like, okay, throw it in. I mean, I wasn't from that era, but that's probably a way that people have discovered music in the past.
That raises two really good points, I think, in terms of the way that music has kind of changed in the way we discover it. Because I think before the access to the internet, at least, and the access to even to something like HMV, where you can fit such a wide variety of music, the discovery of music, I think, was a lot less open in terms of, obviously, the music you hear over the radio is limited, but that's kind of the only music you can hear, or you go out and buy records. And so I think the discovery of music that way was a lot more personal in that, as you said, you can be recommended stuff by the person who runs the record shop. You can just find stuff in a record store and pick it out. I discovered who did I discover? Nina Simone. I discovered that way, and Al Green. I was in a motorway service station driving up to Sheffield when I was about 13. Sorry, I wasn't. I was being driven up to Sheffield when I was 13. I wasn't driving up to Sheffield myself. And there was 2 for £10, and it was a double CD of Nina Simone and a double CD of Al Green, their greatest hits. And so I love
this. I've had this
love them,
like Bill Evans, like 10 albums, like or Coldplay.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, back in the day, that's the CDs. That's before Spotify as well. So
yeah, exactly. But like that's kind of so the discovery of music, I think back then was, you could say it was not more personal, but sort of more individualized. But at the same time, there was a lot less choice in terms of the music available to you because less was being released. Whereas now it's kind of the opposite, that the music is completely available to you. You can find anything on Spotify if you want to, really. There's more music that you can listen to in a lifetime now. But now, as a result of it, I think the music becomes, it's a bit less personalized, because obviously Release Radar, your weekly sort of mix and things like that, they're given to you by algorithms. It's not something that you're necessarily picking out yourself personally, and so you've got to wonder whether there's not whether there's sort of like an agenda in that, but obviously it's driven by what people are listening to, and it's the Spotify algorithm wants stuff that's doing well to be listened to more, and so it's more likely to recommend stuff that's doing well, less likely to recommend stuff that's not doing well. And so it's interesting how the way that we receive new music has been shaped as well by the algorithm, and not necessarily just we have more choice, but at the same time you have to work harder to have more choice. If you just want to sort of passively receive music from Spotify, you're going to receive what Spotify wants you to hear more than completely randomly selected stuff. Like I know, for example, I know there's loads of fantastic South African music that my brother's girlfriend's recommended to me, but that was never going to come up on my Spotify recommended list unless I start looking for it in the first place.
And I think because there's so much power in those streaming platforms now, I feel like that's one of the things I would probably recommend to this. Like, I mean, what is my opinion? But to these new streaming platforms is really working on personalizing the experience for the listener, and tailoring it in a way that is more personal to the listener, and also allows them to discover new music that is not the most popular. But then I say it's a double-edged sword, because I think a lot of people do want to consume music via a playlist that's like 50 different artists or hundreds of different artists, and that's something that they just enjoy doing, and you can't really control that desire, that consumer like that consumption habit, basically.
I think the way that people receive music as a result of things like playlists has kind of changed as well, because I think now, just to take an example, so my fiance Amy, for example, she really enjoys going to the gym, and she has a gym playlist, but it's a gym playlist, not the one that she's made herself. She hasn't gone out and found loads of songs that she likes that get her in the mood to go to the gym. It's just one that she can follow that someone else has made, or that I think Spotify curates sort of gym playlists as well. And so I think a lot of music has become more I remember hearing this phrase in an article I read. It's sort of musical wallpaper for whatever you're doing. So for example, if you're in a club, the music is there for you to dance to. If it's in a gym, it's there for you to exercise to. If you're at a party, it's there. Like it serves more of a, it's not as much of a sort of sit down and listen thing as it used to be. If you buy a CD or you buy a record, you buy it in order to have it and to listen to. Like I still have CDs in my car, and because of the way it's played, one after the other, you have to listen to it in sequence. Obviously you can skip between them if you want to, but it's more of a focus on it. And if you think about, I know you've got a record player yourself, haven't you, at home?
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate personal listening experience. So
exactly, and like we listened to Pimp a Butterfly the other day, right? And it was, but when it's there, like you listen to it and you listen to it one after the other, because the focus is there. Whereas I think in terms of Spotify and playlists and things like that, the focus has moved away from the music, because it's not, you're not listening to one artist doing something for you. You're listening to a group of artists performing a function. As opposed to one artist you're listening to because it's that artist. It's like, oh, this artist along with 49 other artists have great gym tracks, and so I can have that as a playlist and it gets me to the gym, as opposed to this one artist is fantastic, I'm going to listen to them, it's the only thing I'm going to do when I go to the gym. Yeah,
I mean, at the same time, you got to respect those playlists as well. It's just a different type of listening experience. I mean, loads of artists get discovered, and like if you get hit with a certain playlist that's like a sort of an underground artist as well, so it's and then people discover your music that way, and then they maybe 1 out of 10 of them actually goes and looks at all your other music. So I think it's just a changing landscape, and I guess the market just has to tailor itself to people's personal tastes and really keep track of those personal tastes. I mean, there's so much we can unpack here. I mean, from our we've put down a little list, but we haven't even gone into discovering music at a gig, or like discovering music on radio over the years, and also discovering music on an academic level. But I think maybe we should end on this sort of personalization note, and maybe go into just wrap it up with some of our favorite music that we've discovered.
Definitely.
Recently.
All right, do you want to go first then?
Yeah, we've put together 3 categories. So I'm just going to fire them off to you and see what you come up with.
Okay.
And then you can ask them back to me in a sec.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes. It's a reciprocal thing. So
just before you do start, just to qualify, I don't think that the playlistification of music is necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's interesting how it's changed the way we listen to music, and also the way that we discover music as well.
Yeah, or at least some new people do listen to music. So it's not like one dies and the other dominates it. It's like here's this new way of listening to music.
It's another avenue of many that already exist. It's another channel of discovery. Exactly. Sorry, just in case I get asked loads of comments. Oh, Leo hates playlists on Spotify.
Yeah,
I don't. I think they're fantastic.
Ban Spotify.
Yeah, ban
for disliking playlists.
Yeah.
Cool. So I've got here an album that's been recommended to you by a friend, and you don't have to name who it was, but
I'm happy to name who it was. So it's more of an album and an artist, I suppose. The friend was you in this case, because you've recommended a lot of music to me. If you guys don't,
we only know each other.
We
if
know
you guys
each other.
didn't know.
But we lived together in the second year of our of my university, your third year, right? So it's 2015 to 2016, and my third year I spent in Berlin, so I went abroad, and just before I left, I asked Johnny to give me a load of musical recommendations, and he just like flooded my iPod with new music. It must have been about 200 odd artists that I spent the next year sort of listening to. But one of the favourites that I did discover sort of while scrolling through and discovering all these new artists that were on my iPod that weren't there beforehand was Mama's Gun, who are a British indie band based in Brighton, I believe. Are they in Brighton? Or they're from Brighton originally?
They're from around all the place.
Around all over the place.
London and Brighton, I think.
London and Brighton, the south of the UK generally.
Yeah.
And the album is Cheap Hotel. Sorry, I wanted to say the other one. Cheap Hotel is the album that you recommended to me. It's absolutely fantastic. And we've met Andy Platts, who is the lead singer of Mama's Gun, and we've had I've had some good conversations with him. If you guys haven't heard Mama's Gun, definitely go and check them out. They're an absolutely fantastic band. Highly recommend. Johnny is their number one fan. And I think you won a competition, didn't you? So you actually get the amazing opportunity of playing on a Mama's Gun track.
We'll see what happens. Hush, hush.
Hush, hush. But yeah, Mama's Gun is what a friend, which was you, recommended to me.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay,
check
so
them
to
out.
flip it back onto you then. So what is the best album or artist that a friend recommended onto you that you think is fantastic?
Yeah, I mean, I've met some people recently that have just been flooding with great music. A small band that comes to mind is a band called Another Sky. I don't think I've talked about them with you. I think they're a London band.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, they're just absolutely amazing. I think their new album's coming out soon. Forgot the name of it. It's a bit of a long title, but they put out 2 EPs. I've seen them 3 times in the past year. They've got their lead singer Katrin is absolutely incredible, just a crazy voice, and the whole band is just so tight. It's kind of got, I guess, I mean, I don't want to boil them down to one artist, but it's sort of Radiohead, but with just a bunch of other. I think they're really influenced by a band called Talk Talk. There's a bunch of older 80s 90s artists as well. But yeah, it's also got an indie because they're like an indie rock band as well. So
it's making a little comeback, like the sort of 80s vibe.
I reckon so.
I've noticed in some places, and like me personally, I love 80s music, and kind of that the combination of, there's like 2 things that make 80s music for me. It's gated snare drums and synth sounds. And it's interesting that it's creeping its way back in some places. And every time I hear one of my favorite, I know it's a bit old now, but She's American by the 1975.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard that, I was just like, oh my God, this is just like, it could have been something on a Tears for Fears record or something. And I absolutely fell in love with their music as a result of it.
Yeah, they're a controversial band, but they've made some
controversial. They've made some absolutely amazing songs.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next category then?
Cool. So I've got an album that's been recommended to you by Spotify or by some sort of online algorithm, or an album on an artist, something that you've discovered online recently that you might not have in real life.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think the one that I discovered, I think it was on my weekly playlist actually. And so the week before, I must have been listening to a lot of this. I think I was listening to a lot of Nickel Creek beforehand. The band that Chris Thile got his start in. Amazing mandolin player. Definitely check out Chris Thile's stuff as well, and Nickel Creek. But I think as a result of that, I stumbled upon a band called the Arcadian Wild. There you go. And they're a 3-piece. I think it's guitar. A 4-piece. It's guitar, mandolin, violin, and double bass. With amazing harmonies, really well crafted songs. And just an absolute joy to listen to if you're into that kind of music, or if you're on, I like to listen to that sort of, it's very nice driving music, I always think. So whenever I'm driving over to you, for example, or driving to a gig, or driving back from a function work or stuff like that, it's nice to put it on and just sort of lose yourself in it. Definitely check out the Arcadian Wild if you get a chance. They're really
you need to check out their other band called the Punch Brothers as well. I think that's what they're called.
Yes, that's Chris Thile's other band as well. So sorry, Chris Thile is not in the Arcadian Wild. It was recommended to me because it's very similar. It's Nickel Creek key music, I guess, Americana-y sort of vibes. But yeah, I would highly recommend. Okay, so what band or artist did you discover on Spotify?
Well, I've got an interesting answer.
Or a stream platform. Go on.
I've got an interesting answer because mine wasn't actually on a streaming platform, but it was actually recommended to me by a YouTube advert. And so
that's really uncommon actually. I very rarely get
uncommon.
music recommended to me on YouTube apps. That's really on adverts.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but for me, I'm just gonna surface level it. But literally, Leanne LaHavis's song "Is Your Love Big Enough?" Just the music video for it came up as an ad. I think I don't know who was doing it. This was like years ago. This was maybe 2014 or something. But I always press skip straight away on those ads as fast as possible, as most people do. But that opening guitar riff came in, and I was just hooked. I just watched the whole ad, and I don't think I've ever done that ever since. And now Leanne LaHavis is just one of my favorite artists ever. She's released a new album this month. You should definitely check it out. It's called Leanne LaHavis. And but yeah, that's how I discovered her. And
that's so weird, man.
Yeah, it's weird. I was hit by the algorithm.
Damn.
Hit by the marketing execs for whatever label she's on.
That's amazing. Definitely go and check out Leanne LaHavis. She's got some amazing songs as well. Would highly recommend personally as well.
Cool. And the last question is an album that's your parents have recommended to you that you've become a big fan of.
That my parents have recommended to me. They're not really recommended anything to me. I think just growing up, I didn't really have a choice. It's just sort of like, we're listening to this now. Okay. But I grew up listening to, I think one of the big ones was Songs from the Big Chair by Tears for Fears. Actually, no, it's not songs. My parents, they're a big fan of the Greatest Hits album, as a concept. So I listened to a Simon and Garfunkel Greatest Hits album, which I've just over the years I've just internalized. It's kind of burned into my brain now. I can't forget any of it. And it's the same. They had a Tears for Fears Greatest Hits album as well. And so I think it's definitely Simon and Garfunkel and Tears for Fears. Those two albums that my parents are just through vicariously listening to it while in the car or sort of having it on in various places. Are sort of they're the two. I know, sorry, I was supposed to pick one, but they're like those two sort of stand out from all the music that I listened to growing up. Those two are sort of really big influences, and they've influenced my, sort of my not musical conversation, but it's kind of like my taste in music going forwards, I think, as well. There are big influences on it. Okay, I have one more extra question after
Just fire
this, another kind of music as well, but I want to ask what your parents gave you first. What music has your parents recommended to you? Because I think your parents listen to quite a much wider variety of music than mine did. Yeah, well, not much more, but they have the classical side, which my parents have never really been into. Yeah,
they're some of the most eclectic listeners I know. They listen. I mean, they even take upon some of my music recommendations as well. God forbid this crazy barrage of like, listen to this, listen to my music, listen to other people's music. Obviously they brought me up on loads of classical music and like just going to orchestral music as well. I think maybe the Eagles. I'm not sure if that's a weird one, but my parents are really into the Eagles, and I think some of my parents' friends are also really into the Eagles, and I got into their music then. They brought me to some amazing concerts in Hong Kong as a kid, seeing people like Elton John, Billy Joel, and one of them was the Eagles, they were pop stalwarts, I guess, in the 1970s.
That's so interesting.
They actually also listened to Jimi Hendrix before me. They actually had the Jimi Hendrix Experience on CD, and that's one of the ways I got into the album, because I just stole it from them and imported it into my laptop and discovered Jimi Hendrix.
It's got to be so hard. I don't know if you found this. Like a lot of my friends who I've talked to about music, they had like a rebellion phase where they kind of rebelled against what their parents liked.
Interesting.
And sort of people of our generation who were born sort of in a similar time. I think something like pop punk was kind of was a way for a lot of people to get into that. Like a lot of my friends had the pop punk phase, so to speak, and that's I'm
still in it.
Yeah, where
came back.
a lot of my friends still are as well. They've never left. But like, it was a way of kind of rebelling against what their parents were sort of listening to. And I think there's kind of an element of sort of coolness when you have that song that your parents really hate or they think is crap, and you're like, oh, brilliant, I like it then because my parents don't. Whereas like I think for me it was kind of difficult because my parents they're quite eclectic music lovers, so I'd be like, oh look, check out this, I hope they hate it, and they'd be like, oh, it's quite nice, but damn, I have to try and find something else. And it must be for your parents even harder, right? Because they listen to so much music, like it's really hard to have like a rebellious sort of like I'm going to listen to stuff that my parents hate phase, because if your parents like everything, it's very difficult to kind of rebel against it, you know.
I mean, that's probably another episode for another time, really.
Rebelling against your parents. The only thing, the two artists that my parents didn't like were, and it wasn't all of them. They weren't fans of Nickelback. Hence why, probably one of the reasons why I like Nickelback so much. And they weren't a huge fan of Neo or Chris Brown either. This was just to quantify. This was 2007. Chris Brown, before the incident and the whole cancel culture thing got hold of everything. But when I
He's
played
definitely
that to them,
cancelled.
yes, but when I played that to them in the car, they weren't a fan of that, and so like part of me was like, yes, I've managed it. And then I was,
I'm pretty sure my parents were ambivalent during my Neo phases.
Yeah, I think a lot of my musical taste is not consciously rebelling against my parents. It's never sort of like I didn't get on with them or anything, but it's kind of, I think it's just a way of growing as an individual as you start finding things that you like, and you know, it's a way of differentiating, knowing something you like, because you can pit it against something that someone else doesn't like, and if you like it and then you can know that someone else doesn't like it, it gives you a sense of like self, I suppose, and sort of taste in music.
Did you have one more thing to ask me?
Yeah, the last question I was going to ask you was, which song have you discovered just randomly in life, that you came across sort of offline, not recommended to you by anything, that you just happened to hear somewhere, and you liked it so much that you got into that artist? Sorry, so album, band, or artist, whichever.
Randomly.
That you like completely randomly you discovered.
I guess maybe I went to a festival back in 2014. Discovered a band called Pond. They're sort of an offshoot of Tame Impala, and I think, they're sort of Tame Impala without Kevin Parker. And yeah, they're a pretty cool band. I've been listening to them over the years. I think that's another way to discover music as well. It's just randomly at a festival. I think a lot of people do discover music that way. We didn't even go to festivals throughout this episode, but yeah, they sort of stuck around, maybe understand Tame Impala a bit more, and yeah, it's cool to see bands also have offshoots, and maybe that's another way to discover music as well. Is
I was about to mention
and
that actually.
Sub-bands and or other
Wolfpack
projects.
and Theo Katzman, Corey Wong, Phoebe Katis is an extension of Corey Wong, and so on and so forth. You know,
yeah, same as if you're Phoebe Bridgers and she's got loads of collaborators, or even just finding a session. Oh, we didn't even go into it. Finding a session musician. That's another way that I like to discover music.
Yes,
is finding a session musician and just digging into their Discogs.com credits and then finding new albums that you've never heard of before.
At Pino Palladino, we're talking to you.
Yeah, exactly, Pino Palladino. And some other artists or session musicians. Yeah. What about you?
This is a weird one, man. So the guy that I discovered completely randomly was Richard Thompson. From and if you guys don't know who Richard Thompson is, he's a guitarist he's sort of a folk guitarist in the 1960s and 70s. He was in a band called Fairport Convention, and Richard Thompson is a motif throughout my life. And it's kind of freaky. So the first time I ever heard a Richard Thompson song, I was 11 years old, and it was it must have been on the radio, I think. And I only heard a bit of it, and it was a song called "The King of Bohemia," which I discovered sort of, about 10 years later. But it was the words stuck with me, the words for the verse and the chorus. And I discovered it was Richard Thompson. And then when I came to uni, we went to, I think you were there as well. We went to one of the Folk Society jam nights, and one of the guys started playing a song called Beeswing. And again, I heard that, I didn't know it was by Richard Thompson. I loved the lyrics so much that I started Googling them, and it was Richard Thompson again.
Oh.
And he turned up.
Big
and
Rich.
also when I went to, there's a festival in Oxfordshire called Cropredy, which I would highly recommend as well if you guys get the chance to go to Cropredy. It's a folk festival. So there's sort of, it's very folky vibes. If you're not into folk music, you probably won't have the best time, but they do have hilarious bands on. There's a band called Hayseed Dixie, which is a folk country American bluegrass covers band of AC/DC, and they do sort of country versions of the songs, which are amazing. So I'd highly recommend. But the festival is run by Fairport Convention, which Richard Thompson was a part of. And so every single time I seem to hear nice lyrics that are memorable, it's always Richard Thompson. He's haunting my brain. So
I love
if
that
you're,
when it's like someone that has just been on everything and you find out that, oh my God, he was on that too. I think that's
yeah. You know, like it'll be like there'll be one day where I'll be drowning or something like that, and the person who will save me will be the grandchild of Richard Thompson or something like that. He's going to be there everywhere. You know, we'll break down and Richard Thompson he'll come in with a spare tire and save us or something when we're stuck on the road. Like he's always there. So if you're around Richard Thompson, thank you so much for the amazing.
Or it'll just be like a random person called Richard Thompson. Like it wouldn't be.
Yeah. Just everywhere. So if you ever do listen to this podcast, Richard Thompson, thank you so much for the amazing songs you've written. They've stuck with me for years and years and years. I'm 25 now, and they've been with me since I was 11. So please keep writing amazing songs. I love all of them.
I really hope a random person called Richard Thompson listens to this.
I hope he thinks it's him and gets in contact. But no, the Richard Thompson from Fairport Convention. But yeah,
amazing. And anyway, I think we're over an hour now. I mean, let us know if you like this longer format. And
yep, absolutely.
And yeah.
Well, thank you so much for listening again. If you guys have made it all the way to the end, we really, really appreciate it. Are there any ways of listening to music that we've missed, or are there any that you think are really important? If that's the case, let us know in the comment section on YouTube, or all of the other ways of letting us know as well. Comment, like, share it.
Yeah, so much to unpack here. We've got
So
to do a
much to
part
unpack.
2.
Definitely, yeah. If you guys let us know if you want a part 2 as well, and we'll keep digging into this Pandora's box of questions that we've opened. Thank you so much for tuning in to Sonic Bytes. If you enjoyed what you heard, drop us a like or follow us on Spotify, Anchor FM, or wherever you get your podcasts, or leave us a comment on YouTube at Leo Kelly G Music, Twitter at Sonic Bytes Pod, or Instagram at Sonic Bytes. More episodes coming very soon. Stay tuned.